A team I had worked with once in the past asked me, Sam, like these prototypes, or even, it's not even prototypes, it's like less than MVPs, are great because we get to test really quickly. But what type of customers do we show? Because all the feature sets, all the UI, the UX is not going to be ready. And so that's when I introduced them to the concept of Crossing the Chasm. Crossing the Chasm is a book written by Jeffrey Moore. It's like this book. And it's really great because I think it really helps distinguish the types of users we have in the world. So people are like, oh, who's gonna want to use this? They're not gonna be forgiving. They want the full feature set. But we are mixing people up, so we need to be able to separate them into categories. So as you can see, the first category are the innovators. They're the ones who are the visionaries. They see tech way from the, right when it comes out, and they love being at the forefront. So they are extremely forgiving of the quality of the tech. They just want to see something that sparks their imagination. The second group are the early adopters. Now the early adopters, they love tech and they love to try it out, and even if it's not ready, they'll still be ready to use it because they like being at the forefront. I personally am an early adopter / maybe innovator. So then there's a chasm. So the chasm means there's this huge space between the early adopters and the next group, which is the early majority. And they like tech, but they're careful. And so if you can convince them, then they're loyal and they'll keep using it. After the early majority is the late majority. And the late majority, a little bit later in adopting, but they will eventually adopt if they feel everybody else is adopting. And then finally there are the laggards. And they are the people who don't like technology and will only change their cell phone when they need to, because you can tell who the laggards are. They're the ones who still have flip phones in the world of smartphones. So now, once we can distinguish the users that are out there in the market, now it's obvious who we test with. So we test our early prototypes with the visionaries, the innovators, and the early adopters. Now, there is one caveat. One of the downsides of doing that is that you get a very biased view of their feedback. The feedback could be for things that only the early adopters and the innovators like. So you do have to keep that in mind, and you need to make sure that you can't be just thinking, oh, I hit product market fit because the innovators and the early adopters like it. You have to also keep in mind that you got to also check and test with early majority, late majority. So it's also a good idea during the early stages of testing to test it with those groups and to see what the reaction is. And so that way, that's the way that I answered her, is basically when you want to test quickly, you don't test with laggards, you test with the earlier people. However, it's also good to test with the other groups, just so you have an idea, just so you understand what's coming up, so that you can cross the chasm, which is the early market with innovators and early adopters, to the later market, which is the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What experience have you had working with early adopters and later adopters, and how did they receive feedback to prototypes or whatnot? All right, have a good day.